Welcome, everyone. We're really excited to have everyone today on our first episode of Thrive Through Connection with Laurel. Laurel is the founder and CEO of hampr, which I'll let Laurel give you the amazing rundown of what hampr does because I certainly need it right now, welcoming my second daughter into the world. But we're having Laurel on. She's a longtime visible customer and friend. She's raised over $10 million across multiple rounds, most recently in 2024. Uh, I think this is gonna be number one. I can't guarantee you if this is gonna be number one or later in the series. But Laurel, thanks so much and welcome.
Well, even if it's not number one, it'll be number one in my heart, and that'll be fine.
All right, fantastic. Could you just give our friends listening just a very quick Hamper 101?
Yeah, so Hampr is a peer-to-peer on-demand laundry marketplace. So think Airbnb, Lyft for laundry. So we pair up people who want to outsource their laundry with people who live down the street who want to earn extra income by doing laundry out of their homes. They will come pick it up, bring it back to their home, wash, dry, fold, and then bring it back the next day.
I need it. Are you in the Chicagoland area yet?
No, but we actually have a ton of demand in Chicago, so it is definitely on the roadmap.
Okay. And what was your first city? And then how many are you in now?
Our first city was my home market of Lafayette, Louisiana. It's about 2 hours west of New Orleans. And now that was in 2020. We have scaled to 19 different states.
Wow. All right. In 4 years. So was the first round of funding you raised in 2020?
We actually did a launch round in 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how has the fundraising market evolved over the past 5 years? I guess since your first round to the most recent round in 2024.
It has been the Wild West. I mean, we started out right before COVID. So, that was fine. You follow a normal path. Then COVID hit. Nobody knew what was going on. It was kind of scary. And then there was a lot of capital in the marketplace, lots of funds. You had a lot of things you could raise from. And then the markets, SVB crashed. People were holding on to their money. So we've had a lot of interesting dynamics to raise through the past few years.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you were like a pre-COVID company, so you've seen like what it was before, in the middle, and now after.
Hmm.
Have you noticed like any themes in each of those different eras, or has it all just been hard?
It's been challenging. I think the most it's interesting to see what investors will favor in different conditions. And so I just stay dedicated to the fact that like if you have a solid business and you have solid unit economics, you'll be fine. But if you start chasing the what everybody else is doing and what's working, then it's not going to work out.
You're not bringing AI's laundry.
I literally the first sentence on my pitch deck is AI will not do your laundry.
I love that. Well, awesome. Thanks for joining. We're going to break today's conversation into a few parts. So, like finding the right investors for your business, how do you reach out to those investors, and then how do you pitch them? Maybe just to start, average investor relationship lasts over a decade, well over a decade now. I think if you look at like venture data, ventures used to be like a 10-year investment horizon where they would invest and then deploy that capital, harvest that capital, and return it back to LPs. Now it's like upwards of, I think, 14 years from they first invest in a customer, or sorry, in a founder, which is a long time and a long relationship to have with someone in any world, especially in the business world. Um, how how did you approach selecting the right investors for the long haul for Hamper throughout your journey so far?
Yeah, I've been really lucky about that because my background's in account management, so I am all about relationships and all about people. I think that, and I definitely lost sight of this as an early founder early on. You just want to get money from anybody and you almost don't think about the relationship. You just want to get to yes so badly. But it is so important because I've seen it from founder friends. Having the wrong people on your cap table will literally torpedo your business. And you hear people say that. It is absolutely true. I have been very fortunate that has not been the case for me. I have wonderful investors who are super supportive, believe in the business, and that's number one. So if they're believing in what I'm doing, and if this is someone I'm going to want to call when times are tough and I'm not going to feel scared, that's worth its weight in gold right there. If it's someone you think you can have a drink with on a Sunday when you're just hanging out, like that's a good relationship to foster.
How do you test for that as a founder in the process? Is that gut and instinct and feel? Is that I'm gonna back reference and back channel investors? Like how did you navigate finding those people?
Yeah, you should do all of those things, but definitely back channeling with other founders, you're going to get unfiltered opinions, advice. Founder to founder feedback is so important. So that's definitely number one. You have to back channel. And I also think just asking the leading question, get them off guard. What does the next round look like in your opinion? Ask them that. See how they're envisioning the future of your fundraising. Are they going to help you? Are they going to strategize with you? Are they in the trenches with you? Or are they going to lean on you to do all that? It just kind of sets the tone for your relationship moving forward.
Uh, uh, I love that question. Um, what about like have you made a decision on speed or valuation that maybe you later regretted, or maybe another variation of that question would be like, have you maybe an investor wanting to invest, but you uncovered maybe there was not a great fit, and you said no. Like, have you had to manage that problem, or were you pretty good at getting the right people on the top of the funnel that you knew you wanted to work with, so you never had to make those down funnel decisions?
Yes, I was very good at managing the funnel. So I actually had a spreadsheet where you manage investors like a CRM. And I had notes to myself. So right after I would have a pitch, there was a section on how I felt. How did this person make me feel? A lot. There was one, I remember one investor, I was like, he interrupted me a lot, do not like. And I had to remember that because he leaned in and was very interested. And I went back to that and saw that. And I was like, if I felt that way after our very first interaction, I don't need to pursue this. So I think it's really important to capture those first feelings and first, like, how did this person make you feel? And then really, really honor that.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And you said you're really good about the funnel. So you theoretically have a somewhat infinite pool of potential investors when you first get started, when you're starting your business. How did you narrow down that list of who I want to go find and build a relationship with or get an intro to? Was that sector, location, stage? Like, what was the first cut you made um, at that?
It's gonna be it's gonna be surprising but it makes sense. So I was raising in Louisiana. So for me, it was who do I know that knows this person? That was my
Yeah.
so I would literally find the funds I wanted to see. I'm like, oh, I like these people. And then I would go on my LinkedIn and be like, do I know anyone who's connected to them? And then it was, do I know anybody who I'm close to that is connected to them? And sometimes I would, and those would be my top people I'm going to go after. They're in my sector, they're my thesis. I know someone. If I didn't, then I would go to my sort of ancillary groups that I'm in and see if I could get warm intros that way. But for me, it was always if I can get a warm intro, if I can get in the door, that's how I'm going to prioritize them.
Okay. Awesome. And how many rounds of capital have you raised?
Ooh,
Like,
uh, probably about 4 or 5.
okay. So let's just say 4 or 5, or either is great. Like, what is a realistic timeline I should think about from the moment that, hey, I know I need to go raise capital to the money is in the bank? And did that actually change throughout those 4 or 5 for you? Like, did you get better at it? Did the market change either for the better or for the worse? Like, what was the realistic timeline?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, in the beginning, I thought I'm going to do this for 2 months and then I'm going to be done. And it's like, oh no, you learn along the way and you adapt and you figure it out. I don't know. Early on, it was probably about 3 to 4 months from start to finish. It became longer as the market conditions changed and people weren't, you had to kind of adapt and go, okay, this pitch isn't working. This ask isn't working. I need to pivot. I need to adapt. Let me take a break. I'll go back out with another ask. Now I think people are saying to do 6 months. I haven't experienced that yet, but you definitely want to plan for what's going on in the market first.
Yeah. What kind of related to that in relationship building, I think there's like two schools of thought. One is you're only taking investor conversations and really fundraising when you are actually fundraising. And then there's other school of thought, which is I'm always fundraising and I'm always happy to talk to investors. Maybe it's not as the activity is not as high when I'm actually not fundraising, but I'm happy to have conversations and build those relationships well ahead of when I need to raise the next round of funding. Have curious of your approach. Have you seen things work or not work with like finding investors for the next round before you're even really even thinking about it.
Yeah, I've done it both ways. So, like I said, I'm very relationship driven. So initially, I thought, oh, I'm going to keep these people warm. I'm always fundraising. I'll always take a meeting. There's no ask there. There's no, what do we do next? Yeah, they're warm, and you can kind of send them your updates, and you can keep them on your docket for when you need to raise, and maybe they'll be more receptive to when you need them. I think it's more effective to, yes, you're always raising. If you meet somebody, talk to them, but don't go out of your way to set up a meeting, do a whole pitch, do a deck. Like you have way too much to do as a founder on operating your business. When you're fundraising, you're fundraising. When you're operating. There's an adage I really like that says, when you ask for advice, you get money. And when you ask for money, you get advice. And I think that's true. So if you approach it that way, I'll talk to this investor because they can introduce me to someone else that I want to operate with or partner with. Do that. But don't do it from a space of like, maybe they'll give me money one day. I don't know if that'll work.
Yep. Awesome. You mentioned you were in Louisiana and you're in Texas now. Uh, both amazing places. Both I would say are not a major market. If you looked at for venture dollars, if you looked at where the percentage of capital is flowing, um, how did you navigate that when you've raised a lot of money, right? Like you've raised over $10 million, which is amazing. How did you navigate that dynamic where you're not maybe heading out? Did you go to the Bay Area? Did you try to raise in New York?
Yep.
Or was it like, hey, I'm just going to win the home ground game and I'm just going to win in my local market? Like, how did you navigate location?
Yeah, I think it's challenging, especially being in a market where people don't think of venture in general. We do have some funds in the South. I've met them all, but I have an uncanny ability to be at the right place at the right time. So if I connected with an investor and I know I'm not there, I would just say, oh, you know what? I'm actually going to be in San Francisco next month. I'm going to be there, I think, on the 15th. And they say, oh, yeah, let's meet up. Let's do that. And then I'd hurry and book a ticket for the 15th. I've done that multiple times. I did that going to New York, D.C., and the Bay Area. And it really helps because when they meet you in person, it's just so much better to have that connection. I did that a lot. And sometimes they'd say, oh, I'm not going to be there on the 15th. I'd be like, oh, actually, my plans changed. It's now the 20th. Just
It is the biggest. I don't know if it's a hack. Is it like a well-known hack? Because I do that all of the time, right? For customer meetings, and it just works so well. We're like, oh, I'm going to be there, and that's unlocked so much, and I love that you're doing that.
oh, yeah, you have to, especially when I'm in Louisiana. I mean, I want to say no to my face. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You once had so you kind of got your idea of like here are the people I'm going to reach out to. Hopefully warm intro if I can. Um, Outside of that, like reaching out cold, or were there any other underrated platforms or communities that like you discovered that were helpful as you? This is your first business,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
Yep. So as a first time founder, like any other underrated platforms or communities or things you leverage to help you find potential investors?
Yeah, I think, you know, we were a Techstars company, so that really helped going through. That was in 2021. They had a program in Austin. We went through that program. That was huge for unlocking access to capital in the South because that's where the program was. So that was super helpful. There's a group called VC Backed Moms, which I'm in, and that is, I call it the safest place on the internet. It is the most helpful, supportive group of women. And there's a fundraising channel, and it's like, hey, does someone have a warm intro to this person? And almost always they're like, yes, I'll do it. And we'll send forwards for each other all the time. That's been a great
Oh,
place.
wow. So you mentioned founder to founder. Is that like your main channel? Is like peers now, like other founders for referrals and introductions?
Yeah, I find that's the best way. I've done it where I have a lot of connections to investors now, and they'll be like, oh, I can introduce so and so. And I find that founder to founder is better because it's more validity of like, oh, I know this person, or I have a relationship with this investor, and I not only do I vouch for them, I vouch for this founder that I'm, sending you.
Yeah, for sure. What about cold outreach? Were you successful at all using cold as a strategy for any of your investors, or everything warm?
It's really funny. I've done cold outreach. I've gotten meetings that way. I've definitely made connections. I haven't gotten money that way, but I've gotten it where they've reached out to me cold. So I've actually had two investors that have
Hmm.
cold outreach to me and have ended up investing. So it's kind
I
of,
love that.
I know, right? Like put it on its head. But it's so funny because when I talked to one of them, it was literally like a week ago, she said, no one ever responds to my outreach. And I'm like, I don't know why. Like you're clearly an active investor. I guess people think it's spam. So,
It's interesting. Well, it goes to like, are you always fundraising or never? So some founders might just ignore it.
mhm.
Sounds like you did it,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is awesome. Um, you've you've probably heard over the years like, oh, you're too early, right? It could be market, could be a metric, could be team size. How did you take those no's of like, are they actually saying no to the business and just trying to be nice about it, or are they actually saying like, hey, we might invest someday, and here's the reason why? Did you ever follow those investors in a different way throughout your journey so far?
Yeah. It's hard because sometimes it is a polite no. I didn't know this early on, but there's a lot of subcontext into moving the goalpost when they just don't want to say no outright. And I didn't know that. If it was something like that, like, oh, we want to see you at this ARR, or this many customers, or this many locations, I would just note that in my CRM. And then when we hit that milestone, if we were raising, or even actually if we hit the milestone, I'd follow back up and be like, oh, so exciting. I have this update. We hit this milestone. In my experience, 9 times out of 10, those milestones are moving goalposts. And if they're really interested in the business, they know that you'll get there if they believe in it. And it's not really a barrier. So it's, in my experience, it has always just been a polite no.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Let's go from kind of finding investors, reaching out to now pitching,
Mm.
and kind of going through the. I've never found it's like a true pitch. Like you sit down, you run through a deck, right? I've always found it's more of a conversation, but let's just call it like the act of I've got my first meeting now from outreach. Storytelling gets thrown around a lot. Is that something you think about, like your story and how your stories change and evolve, and how have you used that? If you believe in kind of the act of storytelling, how have you leveraged that for Hamper?
Yeah, I think well, it is important to tell a story because these investors hear so many pitches and it has to be personalized. It has to make sense. And I think storytelling is a way to keep them interested instead of what they're trying to do, which is pattern match and put you into a box. The story kind of breaks that cycle. So I tell my personal story, it always, even still, 5 years in. I started this because of a pain point I had as a working mom. And this is what happened to me one weekend. And this is why I came up with this model. And then I lead into the pitch. And by the way, this opportunity is huge because I'm not the only one. So I think it's important to contextualize with something personal. I think it just kind of puts everybody at ease.
How much do you lean on data and balance data with the story? And I'm sure that's changed over the years as well. So you're going from one location to 19 states, but how much does data uh, play a role and has played a role or not in your fundraising journey?
Yeah, definitely a big role. I have woven it into the narrative. So whenever I start a pitch deck, I actually write a paragraph or a document. This is what I want to say. This is the story I'm trying to tell. And then I weave the data points in that connect the pieces of the story together because it just adds more validity to what I'm trying to say. And the data points change. As I get feedback from investors, if I hear a common refrain, I'm like, oh, I need to add that in, or I need to add that in earlier. Like, oh, they're having questions about TAM. I need to get that in as soon as possible. Let me put that in the problem slide. And so I just tinker and iterate. It's like a product. I just change things and see what lands with who until I get to where I really want to go.
Do you personalize that based on the investor as well? Like, so you got your story that you have, kind of my thematic story I'm going to use for this raise. Will you then personalize slides or the pitch for different investors depending on what they are most interested in?
Yes, yeah. So right now we're really doing a hard pivot into B2B. We still have our residential product that is running, but we are seeing a lot of traction with commercial laundry. And sometimes I'll be talking to an investor who's really heavy in short-term rentals. So I'm going to talk about the short-term rental unit economics because that's one of our verticals. Or if I talk to someone who's more into franchise models, I'm going to talk about the wellness centers that we're doing or the B2B unit economics overall. If it's a marketplace investor, I'm going to pull in different data points because I know that they're interested in other things. So I will tailor it to the person. Not crazy, but like a slide or two.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. How how do you approach when to share the right level of info with investors, depending on where they are in the funnel, right? From, hey, here's a little bit about what we do, all of the way to here are our customer contracts for B2B, marketplaces. If I'm going through final diligence, how do you think about dripping and providing the right level of info at the right time?
Yeah, that's hard because they want all the data, but they don't always have context for it. So that's what's so you really have to run a tight fundraising process so everybody's kind of at the same stage at the same time. Because if you're doing diligence conversations and initial conversations at the same time, it gets confusing. What am I sending to who and when, and what am I saying? So I think part of it is running a really tight process. The other part is only give them what they ask for ever.
Hmm.
Because you don't want to send them something and then they're like, I didn't ask for this. I didn't have a question about it, but now I do. And then you're just creating reasons for them to like come up with questions they may not have ever had. So my first data room is always it's like rote. The pitch deck, the financial model, if we've talked about it in person, the cap table, and maybe my COI, like not even a lot of data. And then they come
Hmm.
FAQs, maybe like a one pager. If they lean into that, then you get more. But there's
Yep.
no point in giving them things they haven't asked for.
I love the idea. I think it's a UX concept, but progressive disclosure, right? Like just kind of giving you the right level of info at the right time and not asking for everything all at once or giving, right? Asking for giving everything at once. Okay, great. We got two final questions, maybe related to relationships, maybe just related to being an amazing founder. Uh, so before you mentioned before starting hampr, you were worked at the Superdome in New Orleans, where you saw things like the Super Bowl come through, which is pretty amazing. And you were a marketer there. Like, what's one thing you took away or you learned working for like a big, call it complex, large organization is very different than starting peer to peer laundry.
Yeah, I think what people may not realize is the Superdome is a state-run facility. So we were a private company managing the facility, and we actually managed a few facilities around it, but we were state funded. So we always had to do a lot with a little. So I got really used to wearing lots of hats and figuring out how to, do everything on the smallest budget possible, which really lent itself into being a startup founder. So that was one thing. It's a highly politicized environment, and you had to do things a certain way. I learned how to CYA at the Superdome. I learned how to put everything in writing. I learned what not to put in writing. And so I got really good at writing. I call them professional clapback emails. And it really helped me as the leader of an organization and someone who deals with investors and different, stakeholders. It's just really important to be organized and well written and professional. And I learned that a lot at the Superdome.
What's a clapback email?
If
Do
someone
I not know what that is?
listen, you probably do.
I can't wait to use this.
Yes, if somebody pisses you off and you have to put them in their place in an email in a very professional way, I can do that for you in like 5 minutes. And it's very
Can you give me the 5 second version, like a XYZ, or is it like
yeah, you document like literally this is why you write everything down. It's 9 times out of 10 someone's mad at you because you didn't do something or they said, you said this and you said that. No, it's in writing. This is what we agreed to. This is what we're doing. This is how we're going to move forward. And it's done.
clapback email? All right, I like that. My my wife has a term at her in her office, which is called a wiki slap,
Oh,
which is a little different. Which is someone in Slack says like, "Hey, how do I do this thing?" And then you reply back with like the internal wiki on how to do it, because it's that question's been asked like 15 times, so that someone put the documentation together, and then you, in a passive aggressive but fun way, you say, "Oh, here it is," and you get wiki slapped. So,
have you heard of that "Let me Google that for you" link?
oh yeah, that's my favorite thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, this season we're exploring all things relationships. So, kind of one question we're going to ask all guests at the end is, what is one professional relationship that's changed your life?
This was easy to answer. It is my working relationship with Enjoy the Work, which is an advisoryship firm of general partners, and we have been working together for about a year. They are all about the founder and all about creating an enjoyable work environment, because what makes a great founder doesn't make a great CEO. And how do we bridge the gap between the two? I engaged with them February of last year, and they have transformed not just the way we operate as a company, but me personally. I've gone through just a transformation as a leader, and they have been the most impactful. I work directly with one of the partners, Leslie Ross, and they have a bench of like 10 or 11 people who have been there, done that in operating startups. And so any question I could possibly have about what to do in this situation or how do I do this, I'm building a sales team. I've never done that before. They have someone who that's like his core expertise. And so I can talk to him and I can get advice directly from him. Leslie's really good at operations. They've all raised money. There's a former VC on their bench. It has been transformative.
I love that. We'll end there. Laurel, thanks so much for being a great friend of Visible. Thanks for spending your time with us today. Anything you want to plug? We can plug things on the show. Do you want to plug anything?
Oh my gosh. Well, I just plugged ETW. I want to plug VC-backed moms. If you're a female founder and not even if you're a mother, if you want to have children, if you're thinking about it, like join the group. It is the safest place on the internet. It's so much fun. I love it. It's my favorite. And I always plug Visible. You know that.
What about hampr? Can we plug hampr for a second?
Oh, please. If you're a small business, yes, of course, my business. If you're a small business, if you have a short-term rental, salon, spa, gym, anyone that has linens, we would love to help you out.
There we go. Laurel, thanks so much. We'll catch you next time.
Awesome. Thanks.